Kia ora. Good evening. Right, so I've been really pissing Trump and Musk and Starmer and that off today because they've shut my phone off 4 times. Where I've gone a couple of days with being left alone. So you know all the stuff that I've been saying today must be really curling their pubes because they've shut me off 4 times today, which is the most they've ever done since last year. So you know that they're not liking what I'm saying. So, but luckily I know how to override it and I hear the planes coming. So I get a heads up and then I just preempt everything. So if I get cut off, especially with this one, um, you know they're listening. You know I've pissed them off. I'm pissing them off. They've really been going at it with my phone today. But I've been spitting facts like you wouldn't believe and catching them all out and exposing their lies and stuff. So, yeah, they're not happy with me. So if I get cut off, just give me a second and I'll come back. They literally just turned my phone off a few minutes ago. So there might still be enough time for them to get to turn their planes around because the spy base is just up the road from me. So it doesn't take them long to reach the house. But yeah, 4 times today. And I've been left alone. Like I've had months of it being like once a day. So the fact that it's been 4 times today, it means that all the stuff I've been saying and posting, they've not liked. And, they want to inconvenience me a little bit by switching my phone off for a few seconds, but whatever. Okay, never mind. So, yeah, uh, if you check my feeds, you'll see that everything that I was saying yesterday and this morning's lives nailed it. Within 1 hour to a couple of hours of me saying stuff that I was saying this morning, it started coming true on the news. So, yeah, God absolutely knocked Musk out today. He was waiting for what Musk was about to do. And remember, I challenged him and said, I'll get to you before you come to my door. I did. So, Mama knocked him out. Big style. So, if I get cut off, just give me a couple of seconds and I'll get back on. I'm just having the last couple of sips of my drink as well. So I've been sitting here, in this, it's starting to get warm now. And I was just sitting, laying on the bed listening to Scary Mysteries, Charlie Brandt. And I'd attempted to listen to the show a couple of times, but I kept getting distracted with other things. So I thought, right, I'm going to sit and I'm going to properly listen to it now. And then I started listening to it and I thought, hang on a minute, this sounds a little bit familiar. So I just did some quick investigation. I'm not going to be able to regurgitate dates and things like that because everything's in the description box below. But let me tell you about this Charlie Brandt and how I believe he was a victim of the Charlie Epstein PSYOP program. And I know about this because the children, the children, they told me many, 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 many years ago about what the Epsteiners and all of that were doing to the children and how they would inject them with things to make them go violent and use mind control to make them hallucinate in that so that they would fight each other in gladiatorial fights and that. They told me about all sorts of things, how they would be like pinned to roulette wheels and put in like gladiator rings and injected with things and where they would use mind control to make them hallucinate so that they would get scared in that and fight, and then they would bet on the fights on as who was going to win the fight, and they'd pit siblings against each other and all of that. These were a lot of the things that the kids were telling me when they were coming through in those codes. And this story with this boy, I don't like looking up his father's career. He may have possibly had connections to the Freemasons. They were German and they came to America. And the father was working like in the agricultural and farming industry. So he may have very well, he was like a draftsman in that, so he may very well have had connections to the Freemasons. Now, the night that Charlie, when he was 13, he was in bed, he was fast asleep. And he got up, he went into his parents' room, loaded the gun, went into the bathroom, killed his mother and her unborn baby, and shot his father in the back, and has zero recollection of it. And even his own sister said that he tried to get into her room as well, but she wrestled him, and she said he had like this blank look on his face. There's a particular name that they give for it, like Charlie Manson and the Sandy Hook killer and all that, you know, that blank stare. That's a classic sign of mind control. That Scion that I was talking about with the chat GBT, when he was talking about going on that rampage and that before the cops got him, and I said that's, you know, when I linked him up to the Sam Heslop murder, and I say murder because she was murdered. He had the same kind of wide-eyed blank stares. Charles Manson had it as well, and it's a classic sign of mind control, that blank stare. And the sister said that when she kind of snapped him out of it, he had no memory of anything that was going on. And when she told him go upstairs and get blankets for the girls and that, he just completely, it's like he switched back into being just a normal 13-year-old boy. And he maintained, he had no recollection, but he was asleep. And that's important because with their psyops and that, they, sorry, I'm just had a sip of my coffee and I'm trying not to burp. So rude. They get you in your sleep. There's been reports and studies in psychiatric hospitals and that of people claiming to hear radios, and you know, like radio scanning and the, you know, like in the ear, ringing in the ear, but it's like a sound. That's them using MK Ultra. But nowadays they use AI and that to do it. They get to you through your phones. But one of the things that I linked in my video from yesterday, they were talking about how they used, in the 60s and 70s, they used television to use the MK Ultra pulses to get through, you know, to access the minds of like the kids and that. And remember I was saying about Beatlemania and, you know, how these kids suddenly become obsessed with celebrities and musicians and all that to like a fever pitch level. That's because of the pictures that they put in the music and play over the radio and that sort of thing. And it would have been at the height of this boy's childhood. He was born in the 50s. He did this in 1971, I think it was, when he shot his mum. And then he killed four people, a homeless woman, like his niece. And the interesting thing was, even though they lived in Indiana and then moved to Connecticut and that, they ended up in Florida. And he had an obsession with Victoria's Secret. Apparently he had a lot of Victoria's Secret catalogues. And looking up the connection with Victoria's Secret, that Les Wexner. And he used to remove their hearts. He used to have a lot of medical books on how to do surgery, and he used to remove their organs and remove their hearts. Some of his victims, their hearts were removed, and you know about how they take the organs for Molech and Baal. I can hear the plane. It was but it's a different plane. You can always tell when it's their plane because it's like a low hum, but this actually sounds like an actual plane. So, and then he hung himself. The kids had told me all those years ago that they were using them, that they were using children to pull off murders and to lure victims so that they could be sacrificed. And I have always maintained that 99.9% of all the serial killers out there were working on behalf of the Illuminati to get victims, and then they would take the blame. They get the if you watch the movie The Kill List, this is exactly what it's talking about. At the end of the movie, in The Kill List, what I'm talking about with Charlie and what the kids were talking about is talked about in that movie The Kill List, especially at the end. And I think that Charlie Brandt might have been one of the governments or the Freemasons, the Illuminati, part of their psyops program where they were using children to practice on, to get children to lure the victims and commit murders and that to make sacrifices for Baal. Now, there's a practice, and it goes back to the Middle Ages called sin eating, and it used to be an actual job where the sin eaters would get paid money. They were social pariahs. Nobody wanted to deal with them because they were afraid of karma, basically. But sin eaters would get paid to, when someone had died, they would put bread and stuff on their stomach to absorb the dead person's sin, and then they would eat the bread in order to absorb that person's sin, so that the person was absolved, like given absolution before they died, absolved of their sins so that they could go into heaven without judgment. It was kind of their way of cheating judgment, but of course it's a superstition because you can't escape judgment when you die. There's absolutely nothing you can do to bypass judgment. That's what the Grim Reaper is for. The Grim Reaper, when you die, he's not responsible for killing you. He's responsible for removing your soul from your body and then walking you to your judgment. So he basically waits until God kills you, and then he uses his scythe to remove your soul from your body, and then he escorts you, kind of like a prison guard, but not prison, obviously, because Grim turns up for everyone regardless of who you are, how you've died, your age, whether you're... It's only like the pure and innocent, like babies, children, when they die. They're the ones that go straight into the arms of God. But they still have someone there to... They still have like a Grim Reaper to cut their soul from their body, so to speak. But the Grim Reaper isn't the one that actually kills you. He's just there to collect your soul. So what the Sin Eater does is when they eat the bread, they take on all the sins of the person who's died. And then because they lived on the outskirts of town, they were poor, really. Nobody wanted to deal with them. They were social outcasts. People were terrified of them because they basically were like the living embodiment of the sins of everybody in the village who had died. But there's other versions of sin eaters as well, like a priest, in confession. When people come and confess their sins, a priest is a sin eater. A judge and a lawyer and a cop, they're a form of sin eater, as long as they're righteous and not corrupt. When they hear a person's confessions for the crimes they've committed and that, they take that on board. That's a form of sin eating. When someone confesses their sins or their fears, that sort of thing, counsellor, therapist, there's many, many forms of sin eating. And it's always people who are in positions to be able to judge morally and ethically on how to deal with the person's confession. Which is why I said, as long as you're not a corrupt lawyer, judge, or cop or therapist, and you don't use the person's confessions to mete out judgment in a way that is above the law, below the law, for your own advantage, like blackmailing someone, that sort of thing, or using it to further their career, like a judge and a police officer and a lawyer who are moral and ethical will take the confession, they'll take the investigation, and they will deal with it the right way, where karma is met out in a balanced, even way. The Grim Reaper does the same thing because he decides which door you go in. Do you go to the door that takes you up, or do you go to the door that takes you down? But you have to stand on the scales, sort of thing. Like when you have your day of judgment, he takes you to the scales and you stand on them. And then depending on the weight of your sin, decides which door gets opened for you. And that's in my animated series, Art of Creation, by the way. So, so there's, with the Illuminati, the reason why they target babies and children and animals is because they're pure and innocent. And they believe that if they bring someone pure and innocent into the sins that they're committing, it absolves them of the crime. The child or the pure and innocent victim that they use in their occult sacrifices and their occult practices, they believe that if they pass it on to the children, because they know that God isn't going to judge children, and that children are welcome into the arms of God because God knows everything, and he knows if the children are innocent or not, they pass the sin on to the child, believing that the child is going to take on the responsibility of carrying the burden of the cult's sins and sinful practices. James Herbert talked about the snuff films. We all know about the Jeffrey Epstein snuff films. We've seen the emails and stuff about the torture videos and the snuff films. This guy Charlie, when he was older, he had a collection of snuff films. And James Herbert talked about the snuff films as well. And The Others, which is based on a true story, real events. It's based on real events. He uses artistic license, obviously, but he clearly states in that book, these are based on real events that happened in the United Kingdom, where they were taking disabled children with disabilities and that, and keeping them in a quote-unquote home, but they were secretly making child corn to sell on the black market, but some of them were snuff films as well. And the character comes in to investigate it. So, but it's all real. It's all based on real events. And I think that this Charlie Brandt was one of their experiments. When you look at the stuff I've listened to, the video, listen to everything I've said, and then click on the links, and I think you'll find them right. And then, of course, obviously the Florida connection. He died in 2004. He killed himself in 2004, and his wife and his niece. And, it's everything that the kids said back in the day. And the interesting thing is, it's, my the Quantum Menace one, the fourth son. It's kind of run, that's the storyline, you know, that's my version, like it's kind of like our version of Rambo, where Benjamin Day, the Quantum Menace, this is before he finds out he's the Quantum Menace, sets out to investigate children's based things. I'm not going to go into the storyline because my nephew and I are writing it together. I don't want to give anything away, but it's based on very similar. I was listening to it and I thought, that sounds like the Quantum Menace 1. Ish. So I think that he was, you know, they even went so far as to convince his other two sisters that the mother died in a car accident. They agreed when he got out of the psychiatric hospital, because he was too young to be sentenced to prison, which is weird. They could have sent him to juvie, but, you know, they sent him to a psych hospital for a year. And they said they couldn't find, he was evaluated 3 times, they couldn't find any reason why he committed the murder. They can't understand why he did what he did with his mother and, you know, shooting his father in the back and that. He couldn't explain it either. They were at a complete loss as to why they did it. But the thing was, after he got out of that hospital, it got worse. And I know from past investigations and from looking into, you know, when I was looking for reference material for places that I wanted to investigate to do these shows. When I got to America, I've looked into a lot of sanitariums and, you know, like the Jack the Ripper, the one that they accused of being Jack the Ripper, when he was put in the insane asylum and he starved himself because he refused to eat the meat because he didn't trust it, and, you know, he preferred to eat rats and that. Because he knew what they were doing with the organs and stuff. So, but they used, and like the Cleveland torso murders, the Illuminati rely heavily on psych wards. You know, all these doctors that jump in and give them diagnoses of psychosis and schizophrenia and ADHD and bipolar and multiple personality disorder and all that sort of thing. I can guarantee you that 99.9% of them will be victims of MK Ultra / mind control. And then what they do, see the plane flying overhead that jams my phone, those exact same planes can then tell you what to think and tell you what to do. So, you know, with that Rudy Cabana, you know, the Southport stabbings, you know, how you just seen people commit absolute random, insane acts of violence that just comes out of nowhere. And then you'll find that a lot of them were under psych evaluation at some point in their life. And then they just go randomly nuts and kill people. I'm going to put a link in the description box below that I've been keeping in my watch later. I watched it a few days ago and I thought she sounds like one of the mind control experiments. So I'll put it in the description box. She had a fight with her mum, went completely nuts and ran her mother over with a car. And it's a lot of killing of the parents. There's a guy who killed his parents because they talked the hospital out of giving him his operation to turn him from male to female, because they were worried about his mental health, because he too had spent years in and out of the psych ward. He was like, yeah, not criminally insane, but the mother was like that. He wasn't right in the head. And I've noticed a correlation between a lot of these people who are given these psych evaluations, because remember they tried to do it with me, and I swear to the heavens that one of the reasons why I had to go through what I went through when I was locked up is because I was there to study and learn psychiatry and psychology and the way they treat people, not realizing, or maybe some of them do realize, maybe some of them are in on it and get paid to be a part of these experiments for the government and the military. But most of those girls didn't need to be in there. Some of them just needed a kick up the arse, to be honest. They were childish. They were packing tantrums in order to get their own way, and they basically just needed a parental figure to say to them, cut it out. And I was the one that was going in there and saying to them, cut it out. I had to come in and like sort the whole friggin' ward out, and they hated that. They hated me for it, because when I came in, the girls were no longer needing sleeping pills. Some of them were getting their medication, their doses lowered, because I was settling their anxiety, because I came in and I was sorting them all out, pulling them up on their bad behaviour. But then for the ones that were truly hurting, I'd sit and listen to them. I'd do palm readings as well. I'd make up posies for them to put into their room, and it made a world of difference, and they hated me for it. They doubled down, up her medication, poison her more. Who do you think you are? You've got a God complex. And I was like, how is me giving a woman a reason to eat food a God complex? Like, they were so offended by what I was doing, because after a couple of weeks of being there, I'd figured it all out. And so I used what I knew as an ascension scientist to actually help the girls, because they weren't helping the girls. They were just there to make sure that they didn't try and take their own lives, and give them the right dosage of medication. Because their sessions and that with the doctor weren't therapy at all. There was no form of therapy. These girls weren't given the opportunity to sit down and talk about what was troubling them. But when I got and sat with them and I did their palm readings, or, we just sat quietly in the corner, they'd just pour everything out to me. And then I was able to help them, because I was understanding what was happening. And I swear to God, I learned so much about the human mind and the bullshit of the mental health regime, and it is a regime. A lot of them are terroristic and torturous in their practices. They don't give a shit about curing anyone. All they care about is making sure they get the medications right. They basically use them as pharmaceutical experiments. What medications can we give them to stop them from thinking and feeling? But then they just bottle it up and bottle it up, bottle it up and bottle it up, and they don't know how to get it out. And I was showing them how to get it out. And I was watching these girls come and go. There was a girl that had been in there, basically, she'd been in and out of these places for 10 years, I think it was, covered in scars from hurting herself. And I saw her leave. They actually let her go. She got to go into her own place, where she was given caregivers and stuff like that, because I was going around doing biorhythmic engineering, and because like fights would break out, like vicious fights and panic and fear, and it was absolutely horrible for a person like me who's used to just sitting in calm and peace, because I put that protective bubble around myself by making sure I don't engage with the wrong kind of frequencies, which they mocked in my evaluation, I might add. And I was bang on the money about all of it. I went around with my greenstone, my punami, and punamu, and I was using it to cleanse the hallways and the girls' rooms and stuff. And then all the fighting stopped, and everything started calming down. and then the girls were being released, and I was watching them all leave, you know, and I know what I'm talking about, and I know that those doctors put things into the heads of the patients that are completely fictional. It's completely made up, but these people believe what they're being told. And I think that for the most part, psychiatry is an extension of military programming. They work for the pharmaceutical industry. Absolutely nothing to do with curing the human psyche and the wounded inner child. There wasn't a single woman in there who didn't have some sort of childhood trauma. Every single one of them that was in there had childhood trauma and then entered into abusive relationships. And I got to see the patterns, and I got to see how the doctors were treating it as opposed to how I was treating it, and like vinegar and oil, like vast difference. And I was getting results from it, and they hated me for it because I was this uneducated. I was told constantly by these doctors, like, who the hell do you think you are? Mocking my work and my evaluations, absolutely mocking my work, lied, completely made up stuff about me that was never said, because they hated the fact that this uneducated barefoot Māori woman had come out of nowhere and had completely flipped the script on the work they thought they were doing and how they were doing it. And I was correcting the stuff that they were getting wrong. So I know how this works. And that boy got put in that hospital, and when he came out, he was worse. That's when he started, fantasizing about the killings. And, they say that he killed 4, but they have their reasons to suspect that he killed a lot more. They just can't link him to the crimes, but that he was in close vicinity to these crimes and that. And I 100% believe that he was a victim of MK Ultra. And every time you see someone going on a rampage, using their car to run over people in parades, or shooting up hospitals, or shooting up hotels, and like just violence coming out of nowhere, stabbing attacks in the street, that sort of thing, especially if they have that wide-eyed stare. There is a name for it, I just can't think of it right now. 100% guaranteed they're sleeper agents. And then they use the phone, the TV. That back in his day, when he was a kid, it would have been the radio and the music and TV. But nowadays, obviously, they use AI, Discord, ChatGPT, OpenAI, Grok, AI, that sort of thing. Your phones, your laptops, your broadband, your Wi-Fi. They use the direct energy weapons. Remember that a lot of the direct energy weapons are designed to get inside your head. And they diagnosed this. A lot of people were saying that they were hearing radios in their heads, and it was diagnosed as a mental illness, a radio station syndrome or something like that. And it's 100% real. It's not a mental illness at all. The CIA admitted that they would. It's to test how easily the person's mind could be tapped into, and the quickest way to do it is to do it while they're asleep. That's why a lot of alien, quote unquote, alien abductions happen when the person's asleep, because it's all part of the mind control. And I'm telling you now that Charlie Brandt was a victim of it. They got him as a child, and they use children. They absolutely 100% use children, because then they believe in they're the ones that are mentally ill. They believe they're the ones, they believe that if they get the children to commit the crime and they use the children to be part of their experiments, they won't be held accountable for it when they die. But God sees everything. God doesn't work like that. And the thing is that Charlie, even though he was a victim of it as a child, he will 100% be held accountable for it when he died as an adult. So most mental illnesses aren't even mental illnesses. They're government experiments. And one of the things that I was told was that, see, a lot of these, I know it started in Vietnam. I don't know about World War One. I know World War Two, they were kind of dabbling with it. I know they were definitely dabbling with it in World War Two, but I know in Vietnam that a lot of the guys who were MIA, a lot of guys when they go off to war and it's like, missing in action, they were taken to be part of underground military experiments. And these underground bases, how we know about, the underground military bases, tunnels inside mountains that go to nowhere, and that they took them underground. And this is all the stuff that I was talking about on my WordPress at the time that they were coming after me, that they started coming after me because I was blowing the whistle. But it's like I said, they've taken everything from me. So what have I got left to lose other than my life? But if they take my life, they just make me a martyr. Shrines will get made in my honour and people will come and pray at the altar, to give thanks for my sacrifice and all that. So they'll turn me into a martyr. But I'm one of these people that if I see something, I have to say something. My brain, as part of my ascension, what I was talking about in my live yesterday and today, one of the things that happened with my ascension when I knew that I had to sort my shit out and clean myself up if I was going to be a leader for children, to lead them to safety and all of that, be the Moses for kids. um, I'm joking, obviously, but yeah, is the fact that I needed to be honest. I needed to stop living a lie and telling lies, or because I did when I was a kid. Because when you grow up with the kind of abuse that I got from my mother, and all that kind of fighting and that, you lie to protect yourself, and it stuck with me. And I'm not saying that I was a liar, but I wasn't always honest, and I have to hold my hands up and say that, sometimes I told porkies and that as a teenager, as an adult, and that. But once I started my blog in 2013, once I became a mother in 2009, I knew that if I was going to be a protector of children and be a role model to children, I had to sort myself out. And becoming a mother absolutely knocked that crap out of me, because I didn't want my children to be embarrassed or ashamed of me. Uh, I wanted to be a good example to them. And when I finally fought the darkness that was their father and started removing myself from his energetic parameter in 2015, so 5 years after, or 5 years after, 5, 6 years after I became a mum, because I had Gabriel in 2010, that's when I started ascending and being pulled away from Martin and that, and my students and that as well, from 2015 right up until he left in 2019 until now. So that's how long I've been working on myself to hammer out all the dents that needed fixing in myself. And as a result, I can't stand, my brain absolutely cannot stand anything incorrect, anything that's a lie. You know how I was saying, like, if I say something and I get a date wrong or remember something wrong, I have, like, when I realise I've gotten it wrong, I have to come back online and correct it because of how the universe works. Atoms can't grow and expand when they're unstable, and the one thing that makes an atom unstable is when there's a glitch that isn't pitch perfect, that's not aligned with truth, because evolution can only exist based on organic truth. So evolution can't lie. Evolution cannot perform its prime function on anything that's incorrect. And when it comes to frequency and energy and your nebulas and the expansion of the universe and containing a stable atomic frequency, everything has to be pitch perfect. And that includes the human mind. And so when I get something incorrect now, I have to correct it. I have to fix what I know I got wrong, because I don't want it to come back on me as karma. And when you put stuff out there that you know's wrong or that you know isn't true, it will come back on you as karma. And it's one of the reasons why the world is in the shambles that it's in right now, because we've all been running around living a lie, accepting lies, perpetuating lies, feeding lies, giving in to lies, ignoring lies. And we are all responsible for the incorrect balance of the planet at the moment, because of the fact that we are conducting ourselves in abhorrent ways, or we are allowing ourselves to be treated in abhorrent ways because we're not correcting it. And so I'm trying to show everyone how to correct it, so that if we all work together, we tip the balance, you see. We tip the scales in favour of evolution, because at the moment we're going backwards. We're devolving as a species, because we're allowing evil to make us the sin eaters. And if you don't know how to release yourself of sin, if you don't know how to release all that negative energy that has been forced upon you or that you're carrying, it's going to wear you down and wear you out, and you'll die a lot younger and a lot sooner than you're supposed to, because we're allowing them to get away with it. And that's why they hate me, because I've been banging the drum and blowing the whistle for so long now, trying to wake people up and say, come on, do something about it. And now, you know, when they're using our kids as human experiments for mind control, where they're committing murders like that and becoming serial killers, so that they can have access to the blood, to the organs, to pass their sins on to the victim, that sort of thing. And they're using our children to do it. And now that our governments are handing over the contracts to Palantir and Elon Musk, who have created the technology to do it, perfected Tesla's technology to do it, and we're not doing anything about it. We've only got ourselves to blame when they start wiping our kids out. And then next thing you know, we've just got a planet full of old people because they've stolen all the children, or hurt all the children, or killed all the children, who are the next generation, which is exactly what they want. So remember I was saying, any country that hates the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees, do you see what Donald Trump's just done with the bee program, and how Starmer's chopping down all these oak trees for no reason? I was just seeing it on the news. Everything that I was saying, if you live in a country where they are poisoning your waterways, killing off the bees, chopping down the trees, turning farms into solar farms and data centres, your leader is out to as part of the cult that is has agreed to wipe out humanity. The part of the World Economic Forum Great Reset, and I know New Zealand's government ordered the killing of all the bees, and we all know about Jacinda Ardern and all of that. So I'm ashamed to say that New Zealand handed my beautiful country over to the Antichrist. But it can be stopped, though. That's the thing. We can stop it. We can stop these people and get them out of power. It's called a revolution. But everybody wants somebody else to do it. Nobody wants to get their hands dirty, but it's like, but you voted them in. You got them in. You got to get them out. Because otherwise they're just going to keep getting away with it. And when it's getting to the point where they're doing stuff like what they've just done, you know, what I'm talking about with that Charlie Brandt, your kid could be next. And if your children are having therapy at school on medication for stupid diagnoses like ADHD, autism, that kind of bullshit, schizophrenia, psychosis, whatever, then chances are your kid is one of the experiments. And you've just handed your children over to military experiments for mind control. And then what they want to do is Musk's Neuralink and all of that, put them into the brains of the veterans and the kids and the people in the psych wards and all that, experimenting on them first, so that they can use them like remote control robots, tell them what to do. So if they want to set out an army of Neuralink confused super soldiers out onto the street to cause a rampage, go on a rampage, they'll do it. But at the same time, if you don't comply and they're not happy with you, or you show signs of deprogramming, they'll just switch you off. Because with Neuralink, you can control it using your phone. And you know what they do with my phone, switching it off. If they switch your Neuralink off using your phone, you'll instantly be brain dead. You'll be a zombie. They want to turn you into zombies. And people are clapping and cheering for Elon Musk. And then he literally came out and said, my Neuralink is going to perform Jesus-like miracles. And what did I say? He thinks he's God. So, yeah. So this Charlie Brandt thing is a wake-up call, people. Because Sandy Hook, that Batman shootings, Columbine, all of it, they're all part of the experiment, the great experiment, and they've been doing it since the 19th century. The Alan Moore Lighthouse, I'm utterly convinced that they used Tesla's brand new technology that had only come out a couple of years before on those lighthouse keepers up at Alan Moore in Scotland. So just look at the links. I'll put the video in of the girl. When I watched her, I thought, I need to save this video because an opportunity is going to come about where I'll get to talk about what they're doing, and I'll be able to bring her in as an example. So I'll put the link in the description box, and you watch it, and I'm telling you now, they got to her. She's one of them. Just like that Rudy Cabana and, you know, the Batman killer and the Sandy Hook dude and all of them. The ones that in Wisconsin, that dude that just randomly ran over people in the car and killed all those people at that Christmas parade, and they're all part of it. But you don't know. You don't know what they're doing, but I know what they're doing. And it's like I said, they're also using that technology to get you to vote for them so that you'll bring them in as president and prime minister. They're getting you to literally change your mind and bend your mind to their way of thinking, with Elon Musk admitting that's exactly what he does, so that you'll vote for people that you wouldn't ordinarily vote for. So you know how Thomas Massey just lost his election thing because everyone voted against him, even though he's the most righteous person in politics in America. Guaranteed, all the people that worked against him were put up to it through whatever was fed through their phone, or if it wasn't, they were paid to do it. Something that, because that's what they keep saying about the Thomas Massey thing, it doesn't make sense. And the whole Ebola thing, it doesn't make sense. Something doesn't make sense. Like, why is this happening? This is unreal. It doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, then chances are it's because they got in your head. And the whole thing with MAGA, you know, how MAGA are just letting Trump, you know, oh my God, he's wonderful and praise him and blah, 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 sort of thing. Mind control. Because the one thing that they want you to do is ignore the crimes they're committing. They don't want you. We all know that these files are out there. We all know what's out there, and nobody's doing anything. Isn't that weird? Doesn't that not make sense? Because in the real world, people will be like, holy shit, our president and prime ministers are doing what? And then there'd be a revolution. There'd be like this big bloody uprising with pitchforks and torches and all that, and people heading to their houses and dragging them out and stringing them up and lynching them and all that. But there's not. Why? It's because they lull you. They numb your mind so that you don't feel anything, or if you think anything, you don't react to it because you're doing exactly what they're telling you to do. Just ignore it. Pretend it's not there. And people have walked right into it because they sign up to the chat GPT and the Grok Imagine and all of that. They sign right up to it. Oh, I've got to have the latest technology, and oh my God, you know, Bitcoin and blah. They set up these Bitcoin DigiDosh, and people are handing over their entire life savings and getting wiped out when they pull the rug, and nothing's been done about it. It doesn't make sense that people aren't reacting to the fact that they've literally lost everything because of a fake digital money scam that was set up by Epstein. Why? Because if they fool the masses into a false sense of calm so that they don't react to the rage of the injustice that's been done about them, that's been done to them, they get away with murder, they get away with corruption, they get away with fraud, they get away with all of it. But then I'm here risking life and limb every single day. I get up and I bang the drum a little bit louder and I blow the whistle a little bit louder. Here's the evidence. Here's what I said. Here's what they've done. This is what they're doing. Come on, people, wake up. I'm trying to demagnetize you so that enough of you will wake up that we can start these revolutions in our countries and get these people held accountable for the absolute atrocities against mankind and the planet that they're committing just so that they can be the only people to rule over the ashes. They have all decided, Keir Starmer, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, von der Leyen, Macron, Ardern, did I say Starmer? Tony Blair, Bibi Netanyahu, although he's dead, Donald Trump, all of them, Allison, all of them, they've decided that the rest of us on the planet, including the King and Vladimir Putin, I might add, aren't worthy of life. They've decided we don't deserve to live, and neither do our children. And what they're doing is taking our children from us first, either through psychiatric means, through the vaccines, through child services, because you would not believe the numbers of kids that go missing once Child Protective Services get a hold of them. Kids that get put into foster homes and orphanages and that are rarely ever found once they're taken. Take the organs, take the blood, use them for as sin eaters, or to put their sins on them, because they know that the next generation take over from the last generation. But if they remove the next generation, then the last generation are the last generation. And that's why I was so pissed off with Vaddy and the King, because they walked straight into it. They believed what they were being fed, walking around with the meter glasses on, and then a few days later the king comes out with that abhorrent speech that absolutely betrays everybody in Great Britain, and it doesn't make sense. People were like, holy shit, what did he just do? It doesn't make sense. Like, he's betraying his people. They're now calling for his arrest, calling to abolish the monarchy, which is exactly what Starmer and Trump and that wanted, and the king walked right into it. And Vladdy. Because when good men with balanced, logical minds act in a illogical way, and they're hanging around people like that, you have to question what's been fed into their mind and who put it there. And with the King and Vladdy, it's Trump, Musk, Ellison, Gates, it's all of them. And the second they get rid of the King, and they are planning on killing the King, I can tell you, Elon Musk said the same thing. Once they kill the King, they'll go straight for his grandchildren, who will no longer be princes and princesses and future kings of England, because the monarchy will be abolished. They'll come straight for Charlotte, Louis, and George. And that's why I'm pissed off with the King, because his grandkids are the target. But they have to remove the sovereign leader out of the way first. Because it's all about bloodlines. And who they will and won't let become the first human aliens in space. God, he's nuts. But anyway, so you click on the links, listen to it, and I'm telling you now, he's one of their experiments. So, just putting it out there. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anor.